Week 6 of Dana White's Contender Series is this weekend. I'm going to give you a prediction or breakdown of all 5 fights on this card. And I think we went 2-3 last weekend. Screw very heavy favorited main event fighters, I guess. We had Hardwick and Lopez, who were like minus 600, 700 favorites, and they lost. Hardwick lost by decision. This last guy lost by KO. So just if you see someone that's a pretty heavy underdog, you might as well just put something on it because it is the Contender Series. And at this point, especially this year, at least we had Bo Nickel, who was a super heavy favorite, actually getting finishes and winning the fights to where you don't have to worry about like a prospect getting absolutely derailed. These guys are just not getting it done for some reason. So starting off on this card, we had Julia Polastri versus Patricia Alujas. I'm going to go with Julia Polastri. Patricia Alujas hasn't fought in a year and 8 months and honestly didn't look that good. She isn't fighting the best chicks in the world at all. A 4-3 opponent was that 4-3, 4 years before that. Like, she's not the most active fighter either. 4-2, 0-2, 3-2. Like, she has a decent record, 9-2, but it's just not the best opponents in the world. And I'm not expecting that at all, but it's just like the records are just not good. Like 3-2 opponents, 0-2 opponents. For Julia Polastri, she's beating a 6-0 girl out of LFA, 7-11 by KO, 19-8. She lost to Jasmine Jasudavicius on the Contender Series, which honestly isn't that bad of a loss looking back at it, because Jasudavicius is fighting this weekend actually against Tracy Cortez. So she's actually kind of made a little bit of a name of herself recently after destroying Miranda Maverick, but that's honestly not that bad of a loss to have. Lost that one by decision. I think Julia Polastri wins this one by decision. Maybe she ends up getting submissions. She's decent on the feet, decent on the ground. I reckon she can get it done. Either by finish. If you're saying finish, it'll probably be a submission. I don't see her KOing her, but 26% of Tapology is picking her by submission, 64% by decision within the 91% that are picking her overall. So I am going to go with Polastri in this one. Here we have Eduardo Neves versus Jhonata Diniz. I think I am going to go with Jhonata Diniz in this one. And honestly, looking at Eduardo Neves' last couple of fights, he honestly hasn't looked that impressive at all. Like he won by KO in his last fight over a Thiago Silva, which a KO is impressive, but it just, the way he was fighting, I can just envision him getting KO'd by Diniz. I believe a year ago he did fight McParkin, ended up losing that fight, but did look good early on, ended up getting submitted later on in that first round. But Jhonata Diniz is really good on the feet, unloads of combos, good leg kicks, pretty much just mixes it up quite a bit. Again, unloads really good combos, sets up like his hands, and then has a really nice high kick too. And you don't really see that too much out of heavyweights. So he isn't like a super fat guy like Eduardo Neves. Like, all due respect, he's a bigger heavyweight. Diniz is more filled out within this frame, so he's a bigger dude. He's going to be 2 inches taller than him, and he is a longer guy. I don't know if he's going to be longer than Neves in this fight reach wise. But Neves is still pretty young. Maybe he has a chance. I don't know. I don't like this fight for him. I guess he had a chance against McParkin. Didn't get that one done. I just think Diniz is just going to be too good on the feet. First round KO for Diniz in this one. 71% picked by Tapology. 90% picked by KO. Was that 3% picked by decision? I think this is going to be a KO probably in the first round. Maybe the second round. But I think he just sets up Eduardo Neves. Probably just chews up that leg and then hits him with a high kick eventually and then finishes him up on the feet. We have Matsumoto versus Kasey Tanner. And now this one I'm actually pretty 50-50 on. I'm not sure who I'm actually going to go with here, because Matsumoto is very green, 24 years of age, is a really good prospect, has looked pretty impressive on the feet and on the ground. And I would say maybe at least has a little bit of an edge on the feet. It's not a big edge at all, but striking wise, I think he has a little bit more power in his hands, if not a little bit more pop. He is a smaller guy here, but on the ground, good takedowns. He's like slamming these guys. He's ragdolling them around. He does get taken down himself, but I don't know. He does look pretty impressive. Kasey Tanner himself hasn't fought in a year and 6 months, but when he did a last fight, he's also taking some of these guys down, mixing in his takedowns, looking really good positionally. He is training at a very good gym at Fight Ready. Obviously, that's Henry Cejudo's gym, so he's going to be learning quite a bit, especially in the wrestling department. And I think he can stuff all the takedowns of Matsumoto, even though Matsumoto does push a pace, does look pretty impressive, and possibly could take him down. I just think Tanner, again, has really good takedown defense. You saw it in his last couple fights. And I think positionally, he might have the edge here because Matsumoto when he does take these guys down. Although he does end up getting submissions, like he got a mounted guillotine, which actually is pretty impressive, and he does have quite a bit of submissions on his record. I think Kasey Tanner might edge him a little bit more in scrambles. Like he moves like a very fast guy, and part of that may affect him in the later part of this fight, because I also think his cardio is not that good either, which does kind of worry me in this matchup, because Gene Matsumoto can definitely push a pace on a guy and make this a little bit hard for him. Like I feel like he can definitely gas out Tanner, but I feel like Tanner has a really good shot at winning this one, because I think in Gene Matsumoto's last fight, he jumped a guillotine a couple times in that fight, and that does kind of worry me, because I feel like Dana White Contender Series is heavily reliant on fight IQ sometimes. In some matchups, sometimes the skill is just too much, but I think fight IQ is a really big part of it, especially in a pretty even matchup where you have guys that are both good on the ground and decent on the feet. I would say I would edge it to Matsumoto a little bit more here, but they're both pretty decent on the feet and can definitely make this scrappy. You kind of want to edge it to fight IQ, which kind of worries me. And I don't like it when guys jump guillotines, because really, especially if you're fighting a wrestler and grappler, if you're jumping a guillotine and you're on the ground, that's just a better position for them, because I think Kasey Tanner knows his way on the ground. I think he can get out of something like that, but I just think the cardio is not something I like here. He is 31 years of age, so he's not too old, so I'm not too worried about that. I think he will be the bigger guy here. So I don't know. Again, this is a straight coin flip. I'm not going to give any definite prediction here, but I am going to end up going with Gene Matsumoto. I can see Kasey Tanner beating him early, though. I can just see him being a little bit smarter fight IQ wise, and Matsumoto just makes a lot of mistakes because he is a younger fighter. He still has a little bit more to develop, but I can also see Matsumoto maybe catching him or something, or winning a decision as he just tires out Kasey Tanner with the pace. So I don't know, man. We'll see how this one goes, but Tapology is taking Matsumoto 92% predicted here, 67% by submission, 21% by decision. I don't think Matsumoto submits him, though. That's the thing. I really don't think he submits him. He is from Brazil, and if I were to edge the wrestling to someone, I might edge it to Kasey Tanner, because it is American wrestling, but Matsumoto is straight up just ragdolling guys. So I don't know. Again, I'm pretty split on this matchup. I don't recommend doing anything with this matchup if you're betting at all, but I mean, do whatever you want. This is Contender Series. They might just finish one of these guys in the first round. I don't know. Contender Series this year is just so random. So I'm going with Matsumoto. Tanner will probably win this one, because I was really edging Tanner before this, and I think I kind of talked myself into Matsumoto. So we'll see what happens. But I am going to go with Matsumoto in this one. The card, we have AJ Cunningham versus Steve Nguyen. I am going to go with Steven Nguyen in this matchup. He has been on the Contender Series twice before. Lost to Alan Cruz by KO due to a flying knee about 4 years ago, and then beat Theo Riang by decision about 2 years ago, and he hasn't fought since. So 2 years inactive for this guy. Is now 30 years of age. I don't know what he's been up to. Maybe he's getting better. Maybe he's training. Maybe he's thinking like, oh, I didn't get another contract. Like, I need to figure something out. Who knows? But AJ Cunningham last fight was a win over Jason Mullen, rear naked choke, 6-4 opponent about 3 months ago. Looked impressive in that one. Beat Shea Conley by decision, 6-4 opponent. Like, when I watch AJ Cunningham, he is a good grappler, but I don't think Steven Nguyen actually has decent takedown defense, and I don't think he's going to be able to take down Nguyen very easily. And Nguyen is very good on the feet, and I think he can beat up Cunningham quite a bit, because Cunningham is very hittable. I can see Nguyen end up countering Cunningham, and I can see him actually getting the finish here, because I think if you're having your third fight in the Contender Series, I would expect you to do a little bit more to try and get the finish so you can actually get a contract. Maybe if he even does get a decision, Dana White will end up giving him a contract. Who knows, because they are a little bit more lenient this year with giving out contracts than they were at least like the year prior and the year before or whatever. So we'll see what happens in this one. I am going to go with Nguyen, though. I think he ends up getting a third round finish. AJ Cunningham won't go side to side like his last opponent, Theo Riang is how I'll say his name, where he was making it pretty tough for Nguyen to land some shots. Even though he did land some shots, he had to be a little bit more patient with his shots in general. But AJ Cunningham is open for counters. He's very hittable. I can see him getting finished in this one. I am going to go with Steven Nguyen by finish in the third round. People will probably take a decision. I think he ends up getting the finish. It is pretty split which I think is probably the right choice here. I am going to heavily lean Nguyen, though. This isn't 50-50 like the previous matchup and this next matchup coming up. But I am going to edge it a little bit to Steven Nguyen. I can see both of these guys winning. It's just one of these cards where it's pretty split. So Nguyen is actually 38% picked by Tapology here, 67% by decision, 24% picked by TKO KO. Cunningham, 62% picked by decision, 76% picked by decision. 62% overall, 7% by submission, 10% by TKO KO. I am going to go with Nguyen in this one. Of the card, we have James Llontop versus Malik Lewis. Another interesting matchup. I was actually going to take a Llontop before this, but I've convinced myself to pick Malik Lewis here because Malik Lewis has looked pretty impressive in his fights. Last fight was a win over Paulo Silva by KO. I'm going to jump the loss there. Loss. Beat Marcos Vinicius by a submission due to triangle choke. Before then, lost to Trevor Peek by KO. The absolute Chad. Trevor Peek just chatted his way through that matchup and ended up finishing Malik Lewis after he gassed out. And Malik Lewis looked really good in that first round, but again, ended up gassing out and just getting beat the crap out of in that second round. So he did look pretty impressive. Like, he's very good on the feet, has good power in his hands, very fast, really good wrestling. But James Llontop can definitely do a Trevor Peek in this one. Now, Trevor Peek has the power. He has the wrestling himself, so we'll kind of see what happens here. But James Llontop, I think definitely, from the way he fights, you can definitely see that he has heart. Like, in his last match against Nilson Oliveira, he won that one by KO. Early on, he got knocked down and ended up like holding it into the clinch a little bit more, getting takedowns. It wasn't as crazy as Malik Lewis, where it was just super dominant. He got like knocked off balance a little bit early on in that fight, but then kind of as that fight went on, he just started running some output and was just too much for Nilson Oliveira against the fence and just absolutely destroyed his body and just broke him, is what it felt like. So if Malik Lewis goes out there and doesn't finish James Llontop in that first round, I can see Llontop just having better cardio, a little bit more heart going down the stretch, and just TKOing Malik Lewis, kind of like how Trevor Peek did. I don't think he's going to like pick him up and dunk him on the ground and just beat the crap out of him. Maybe he does, but I think Malik Lewis doesn't get this finish in the first round. A live bet might actually be a solid pick here for James Llontop. So I am going to go with Malik Lewis by getting the first round finish because I think, he has really good power. He has really good wrestling and grappling. If anything, he should be able to get this finish. 27 years of age, still pretty young. James Llontop, 24 years of age himself, but I am going to go with Malik Lewis again. If he doesn't get this finish in the first round, James Llontop is definitely a live guy in the second round, or maybe Llontop turns it over in the end of the first round and finishes Lewis. But who knows? Dana White's Contender Series has been pretty 50-50 this entire year. I feel like hasn't been like a super heavy favorite that's closed out. Like we had Hardwick and I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. We had Hardwick and Lopez, who were the biggest favorites on this entire show, and they both lost. So is what it is. Llontop is getting picked 87% here, 85% by TKO KO, 8% by decision, 13% for Lewis, 59% by TKO KO. I am going to go with Lewis, but again, if this does get a little bit into deep waters and James Llontop is still there, I think Llontop ends up winning this one. So that's what I got for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed the picks. This isn't too crazy of a Contender Series. I really do like the Gene Matsumoto versus Kasey Tanner fight. I think that one's actually going to be a super fun fight. But we'll see what happens. Again, let me know who you guys have with your picks down below, and I'll see you guys.